Hello everyone, Morris here, and today we have some new changes with Axie Infinity Origins, and this is for pre-season 4. But of course, there will be further changes before they start season 4, so this is not final for sure, but it is good enough for us to start some theory crafting. And there's a bunch, right? I'm just scrolling through this pretty comprehensive in that sense. So let's just actually go through what has been changed. And of course, sorry for the lack of updates. Been busy with life for the past, well, month or so. Actually I've moved to a new place as well, so it's a new kind of setup. So if you the audio or things not working, do let me know. And yeah, let's just get into the changes. So first of all are the runes first, and yeah, let's just actually the charms and the runes as well. So let's just get into it. So first of all is the beasts with the Mad Moon Mask. So basically, a lot of the runes and charms that are not being played, I think they kind of buffed it. So for this one, yeah, not really seen played that much. And so now basically the patch note says bonus base attack increased to 30 as opposed to 25. So it basically is the one that pairs with the Glorious Main, and that package, to be honest, is quite good at like the lower level. I've played against it quite a lot, but it is a bit slow, and that's why I think they really try to buff it to increase the power level. And basically now, yeah, it's just increased by 30%, which is yeah quite significant. Of course, 25 already feel pretty good, so maybe this is push it above the like the threshold so that you can be competing with the other kind of strategy. As you can tell from last season, right, it only takes like one very small change, and then one strategy can be a very dominant one. So yeah, let's see if this one become a game-breaking one, but I don't think so. This is yeah probably still okay, but let's see. And then for plant, we have the oak bud, which never really seen play to be honest. In the sense that I mean I've tried playing it, but it wasn't that good. So now it will change from 30% to 40%. So maybe it actually push it enough to get played. I think I see this, like maybe I'll see it played in some sustain or something. But again, it really has to find the right archetype. Otherwise, it's probably not gonna get played. But I feel like this charm, right, it's not played not because it's not strong, but I think it's just because there's no archetype that can make good use of it. It's just because the plant cards might be a bit too weak. Okay, so next one, okay, Bloodstorm. Wow, okay, this is quite a big change because don't really see Bloodstorm or that rune being played. And so now instead of 3 turns, now it changed to reduce 1 turn of bleed and deal AoE. So I think this could be a lot better. It's because sometimes it's really hard to keep the stacks of bleed up in terms of turns, but now it doesn't need that much just because it only reduce 1 bleed turn as opposed to 3. So I think that could push it enough, but of course it is a Mystic Rune, right? So it might not be enough to compete with the other Mystic Rune. Of course, Mystic Rune is not, you can play 3 Mystic Runes if you have the resources. Of course, for a lot of people, they probably just rely on the free one. But for the highest level, this might see play. Yeah, they are then really trying to boost the beast package because you see a lot of beast runes being buffed. So Glorious Main, well, previously it was 6%, now it's 10%. So I think this probably push it enough that it could be competitive, at least definitely in the Epic era. In the yeah, in the Mystic era, it might still be a bit too slow. I'm not sure because this other runes might be better. Okay, Penguin scale are going to 20. So uh, yeah, it's just not seen plays because maybe it's just too much aggro and yeah, now I guess this goes well with aggro as like the um, front line for aggro beast kind of team. Yeah, but yeah, it doesn't change that much to be honest. Okay, and then for Reckless Hunter, again, doesn't really change much. It's just that it takes 10 as opposed to 15% damage, but I don't think that matters that much for this rune. But yeah, so let's see if we'll see play, but I don't think it will change much. Okay, Frail Egg, not much change. Additional 10 damage could be good for um, the rare era, but otherwise probably not that significant. And then, yeah, Feather Descent. Okay, this one, I feel like could be quite, I won't say that big, but every turn now it gains two feather as opposed to one, and which makes it a lot easier to get to the 10 feather stack in a way. So you do get maybe during the whole game, you get maybe another round of 10 stacks, I feel, with this, or maybe even two, just because like the beginning rounds you don't really get that much many stacks of feather, but at the later rounds you can get a lot of feathers as you play cards. So um, again, not sure if it's enough for pushing it to the Mystic era, but again, we'll see. Okay, so again, yeah, bird really needs some love as well. I feel it's because people are playing birds card, but without playing the birds, with all the wing horns and stuff. So okay, so for the Raven's tactic, now basically what happens is that the healing consumes um, one as opposed to two feathers. Okay, so consumes all feather. Oh, sorry, yes. So the healing, you only get 1 HP as opposed to 2 HP, which is kind of a nerf, but it heals the whole team. So that's the main thing, right? So now it's kind of like AoE healed as opposed to just healing this, which is kind of okay. But then, yeah, this healing is really not much, right? Even if it's 10 feather stacks, yes, healing 10 like AoE is not that great. The good part, the main good part is really this one. Default 15% bonus damage already, meaning the first hit you already deal 15%, which in a way is, like I'm thinking about like say Reckless Hunter is 25%. So this one is 15%, but then, of course, it can still increase up to 45%. So of course, Raven Tastic is definitely better than Reckless Hunter in that sense, especially with Bird with a lot of multi-attack card, multi-hit card. So I think this is the thing is a Mystic, and I don't think it's good enough to compare with other Mystics. So that's the problem. Um, but do bear in mind that a lot of the times you do get a lot of 45% increase in the damage, which was already the case in a way last season, but still never seen played. So that's why I'm not too sure. Maybe again, it's like the rune itself. I think is good. It's just that maybe it just doesn't fit in a particular archetype. But I feel like aggro bird could be a thing. Of course, it has to be like multi-hit card, otherwise 15%, 30%, 45% average to maybe 30% might still be good, but of course you have to play all cards from this Axie, right? Um, yeah, so yeah, I can see the multi-hit thing, like end game could be quite strong, but we'll have to see. Okay, and then the bug, right? The bug ones really haven't seen like Fate Maker. I haven't really seen that much, so it's reworked. And okay, let's look at the new description. And it says, enemy cards discarded by your team have the stats reduced by 10%, and deal now it deals damage, right? Deals damage to their owner equal to 3 times the stat reduced. So yeah, every time you discard an enemy card, and note that it's by your team, doesn't have to be by this axis now. So basically you can have 3 bugs that, oh, there's 3 different axes, doesn't matter, right? You can discard your opponent's card, and every time you discard, it reduces you know, their stats, but also deal damage. So I think it's basically dealing 30% of that damage. Let's say you discard a 60 attack card, right? Then it basically deals what? 3 times 6, which is like 18 damage. So not insignificant. Um, yeah, and actually the other part is probably better. It says your cards discarded by your team have their stats increased by 10%. So note that it's like every card. I assume like your cards just means like any of your Axis card. So meaning if you just go through your deck with the clear or nerdy or something, right? Then you discard those cards and then you do gain 10%. So I think this could be pretty good. But of course, again, it is pretty slow. Right? You have to draw the card again to play it. And so, yeah, again, it's finding the right archetype for this kind of rune. Okay, so so it's definitely a support rune, right? You can see a support and debuff kind of thing. It's not really like a rune that you can just use. Um, I think it has to have quite a lot of support for the Fate Maker. Okay, for Leech, just a small change. So this Shield Stolen now is 35 as opposed to 40, which is fair. Leech has been pretty strong, even at the latest stage, like the Mystic era. So yeah, I think this is pretty good. Okay, Metamorphosis. So this one is a big one. So Metamorphosis. Now let's see what has changed. So the shield to damage conversion rate increased to 7%. Okay, so just to remind everyone what it does, all right, is that when your turn starts and this acts against two cocoon, okay, and then deals damage equals to 7% of a shield per cocoon stack. So imagine you have 10 you have 10 cocoon stacks, which can like you probably get it to it quite easily, to be honest. It's because you gain cocoon and then you can have cards that gain cocoon as well. So now it actually does 70% of the shield per cocoon stack to all enemy axes. So that could be quite significant. But of course, it is at the start of your turn, and so if you stack up a lot of shield, right? So you have to bank on the opponent not hitting the shield, and then the leftover shield, then you basically deal that damage. But of course, the cocoon actually gives you, let's say if you have 10 stacks, cocoon should give you, I think quite a lot actually, right? I forgot exactly how much. I think it's like 4 per stack, right? So it's 40. So at the base level, you do get 40 shield if you have 10 stacks of cocoon, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it can still do quite a bit of damage, even you don't have shield left over from last turn. So yeah, I think it's pretty good for epic. Mystic, not too sure. Maybe good for AoE though. Against and also for AoE teams, just because it does AoE damage as well every turn, and of course it gains shield to that obviously is good against AoE. Okay, then healing force. What's changed now is that the AoE has been reduced. Yeah, healing force has been just too good. Even for the Mystic, I won't say too good, but like it's good for Mystic era, right? So, that's why I think turning down the power level is fair. And then Holy Prayer. Okay, so this is an interesting change because it has two changes. One is that it only remove one curse card now, so in a way it's good that um, you just don't like usually, right, in this kind of case where if you have Holy Prayer, like one rune basically counters the whole archetype. So now at least it doesn't reduce that much and remove that many curse cards. So at least curse can still work, even though of course it makes it less effective, but it doesn't like just eliminate a whole archetype. So in that sense, it's good. To compensate for that, you do get bonus of 15% for the allied all allied axes card. So yeah, the curse card, I mean, but of course that only applies when you have no curse card. So curse build can still, now fight against Holy Prayers because then if you put a lot of curse card in, then okay, they remove one per turn, but you are really usually putting like two, three or more per turn, right? So then it doesn't really keep up. So that's why I think Holy Prayer is now only good against non-curse card decks. That's because you do get 15%, which is quite significant. But I if you have curse card, you don't get the 15%, then it's kind of a bit weak, I feel. Okay, a exciting one is the Soul Eater. Soul Eater, what happens is now it's just reworked and is well, now it's I think quite strong. Okay, so what it does is that it's like when your turn starts, so every single turn of your turn, right, consume 66 HP from the lowest HP ally. Note that it could be a trunk or like like a basically a summon if they survive. So actually killing off the summon sometimes it's not a bad thing because summon usually already does the job already. Um, then, but of course, even if you don't have summon, 66 HP is it can be significant, but for maybe certain type like a sustain kind of build or something, it can still make it work. And what's the effect is that it increase base stat of all ally Axis card. Okay, so note that it's all ally Axis card by 6%. So uh, yeah, so it's just basically buffing all the allies Axis card by 6%. So it goes pretty well with obviously with the Glorious main here. Then basically it will be like 10%, but then you'll also get buffed like 6% every turn. So it can the scaling can go quite insane. So I can imagine, right? You can have like a Soul Eater, like a Dusk, and then another Axie that's very defensive, right? With a Glorious main attacker, that kind of thing. Yeah, so you can just try to survive as long as possible. Yeah, and then at the late game, just deal massive damage just because you survive for so many turns, right? And then, of course, your card will be like just crazily powerful. So that is one way of going about this kind of team. So yeah, I can see that this is a pretty interesting change. And then we have whole Shady Exchange. So Shady Exchange is, I must say, hasn't really seen play because it was just too much. But now, actually, I feel like now the change is that um, instead of turn three, now until round two, right? So instead of round three, right? So it's only 2 rounds, right? So until round two, you lose the up to 2 energy fragments. But then after round two, so meaning starting from round three, you gain 3 fragments. So I must say there are other ways to ramp pretty quickly as well, but now this gives other teams a way to ramp without running the ramp cards. So I can see that this could be quite strong for teams that needs ramp but doesn't have it. Yeah, so I was thinking about a Soul Eater thing, but I don't think they probably need ramp. Um, yeah, but there are other teams that might benefit from the ramp, but then don't have, they need the cards for doing something else. So let's see if Shady Exchange get played because, of course, uh, has been very strong before in I think season two or season one. I forgot which one already. So I think this actually could make Shady Exchange see play. But note that it is now a mistake, and so it will, like it's hard to get your hands on, I would say. So for the average player that don't really pay that much for like buying runes, then it might not be available just because there are other mystic runes that are more archetype, defining in a way, right? So enabling and right. So there are archetypes enabling, like I'm thinking about obviously Endless Anger kind of thing, right? Where you just need Endless Anger, and then you can do okay well, right, with your team with only one mistake, whereas Shady Exchange might not be the case. Okay, and then we have a Destiny Leaf, interesting one. Doesn't really change that much to be honest. It is a rare rune, so it's not that powerful. Gives summons 14 bonus max HP, and then now what it does is that when the summons die, deals damage equals to 8% of this axe's current HP to the close enemy axis. So deal a bit of damage as opposed to getting leaves. It's still probably gonna be pretty weak. It could be okay for rare era, but otherwise a bit hard after that. Okay, then let's look at the cards, and yes, very interesting changes. So first off, we have Ronin, and interestingly, I don't know why, but they yeah, just decide to buff it. So not sure why. So first of all, its cap on energy spent is removed. So I actually didn't even know that there is a cap of 5 energy before. You can see here, but now, um, okay. So I don't think I see it that much, just because yeah, don't really see Ronan play that much. Maybe that's why they decide to buff it. But I feel like it's already a very strong card. And now changing to 45, of course, you can buff it with a charm as well. And the damage is pretty insane because the damage has been pretty strong already with Ronan when it's played. So that's why I'm not too sure if this is necessary, but that's the change. Okay, Hero is now, I think, a lot stronger. So first of all, is I think it changed. So first of all, it's okay. So the new stat is now 65 as opposed to 70. That's because the effects has been buffed. Because now it says put limit 3 still, but say put one random attack card from your draw pile to your hand, meaning it draws you a card basically. Yeah, and it is a tutor in a way, so in a sense, like you are guaranteed to draw an attack card as well, so that might be a good thing. So I'm thinking about um, yeah, so that archetype where you reduce all the cards of one axis card by one energy, and then of course then this goes pretty well because it guarantees you to draw another attack card, which can you then draw your card as well and so on. So maybe this could work in that. But also it can actually work with other decks as well because I'm thinking about other decks that just requires a lot of attack cards at the end game, especially maybe like Owls kind of thing or like triple Nutcracker. Maybe it just allows you to draw into the key card that can finish your opponent off. Okay, then Risky Beast, interesting change. As opposed to getting Death Mark, now you just get Hex, which of course is good for aggro team where you don't Hex doesn't even matter. Yeah, but otherwise not that big of a change. Okay, so Buzz Buzz like not really seen play that much, and that's why I think they buff it to 10 um, bonus damage per card discarded as opposed to 6. So now you only need to discard or banish 3 cards to get to that, which I think is now more doable. Yeah, so maybe AoE might play this as opposed to usually they play like Feather Fan, that kind of not Feather Fan, the Tri Feather. So maybe they can run Buzz Buzz now. But of course, it still has to goes with the banish and discard kind of thing. So it's still not easy. That's because in those AoE team, the only banish stuff is usually you Innocent Lamb, and then you yeah. Now Cointel is not even a banish card, so yeah, not too sure. Yeah, so again, it's an archetype kind of problem, right? What kind of archetype will play this kind of AoE card? Yeah, so not sure. Not sure why they are buffing quite a lot of AoE cards because it just doesn't compare well with Earwing, so that's why. So Gil now changed to 25 as opposed to 20. So again, basically buffing AoE stuff. Okay, Lava. Okay, Lava, a very small change. So now it only banishes when you discard a skill or secret. But usually you would want to discard a skill or secret card to get the 2 energy. So in that sense, doesn't change too much. But of course, they don't want you to keep gaining the 2 energy fragments, right? That's why they have a banish. Okay, Ewing now reduce damage by 5, which in a way it can be significant. Not too sure still, just because it still scales very well with um, other things. Basically, for example, like deal 3 bonus damage each card in your hand, right? So like the 5. I don't know if it's enough to enable other archetypes. Having said that, though, the AoE hasn't really been that strong compared to, let's say, Topaz and other deck, and so maybe that's why they don't feel that AoE is actually like a threat, and so in terms of breaking the meta, and so that's why just a small change would be enough so that you basically try to enable other AoE cards being played as opposed to always playing Earwing, is because Earwing I still feel is the best in slot at this point, but maybe like changing Skill to 25 might make it worthwhile compared to Earwing, just because then you don't have to have this requirement of having cards in your hand and so on. And of course, Skill, has this advantage of getting the bubble as well if you care about bubbles. Okay, then next we have Leafy. Leafy, it's pretty sad in the sense that I haven't really seen Leafy played much. At least now it's possible, so that's why I have been a Leafy player in season 1 or season 2. So quite excited. Having said that, the base damage changed from 20 to 25, which again is not that significant, unfortunately. So it is what it is. So basically now instead of doing 50 times 3, you do 55 times 3 without any other buffs, with only the leaves. which is okay. But yeah, I think it could be good once you see other, well, later where you can how you can gain more leaves. But yeah, I'm still quite excited of playing to play Leafy next season. Just want to make it work, or at least maybe you know, at least try, just have fun. Okay, next one we have the Cyborg, and now it changed to target any enemy. So this hasn't really seen play, but now may see play in certain deck, poison deck. I mean, not certain deck, like it probably has to be poison deck, because now it says apply 4 poison and then consume 1 spike to apply 4 more. So this could be good in the forgot what that rune is called, right? Where it gives you 1 spike every turn. So that one can yeah, if you run that rune and then have and that this card then actually applies 8 poison, target any enemy. So you target a key enemy, let's say the Glorious Main or like the Little Owls one, then I think this could be strong, but still it competes. Now that's the problem, right? It competes with the slot because it's ear, and so you might not want to like run this in the poison team. You might want to run it in like other type of team, but I don't know. So that's again, it's an archetype kind of problem, and it has okay. In this case, it's a archetype and a competing slot problem, which is always a problem in Axie, I feel, because certain slots are just used up by certain cards in a certain archetype. Okay, this is the big one, of course, right? Topaz. To be honest, I was expecting a bit more, but so basically the nerf is that it changed to 12 as opposed to 15 bonus damage per banished card, so meaning you do lose like maybe like I'm trying to think. The cap is still 120 though, so I'm trying to think like you basically need another to banish another few cards in order to get to the cap. But the cap is still um, basically 120 plus the 30 base power, right? So the base power never changed, so it's still 30. So it's still 150. It's just that it's harder to get to now, so you have to run a bit more. But I'm thinking about the team that 1437 played to the end of the last season. You, it's not that difficult to get to the max still. With maybe you have to play one of the cards that give you the wooden shield. But yeah, you can get there still, uh, with the right combination of cards, of course. So I can imagine this is still going to be pretty strong, but of course now it's a lot harder to get there because you need extra more specific kind of card combination, because last season it already requires quite specific combination of cards with the Innocent Lamb, with the um, Nemo tail, right? And now you probably need something more than that to get to that level. But still, it just means the breeder uh, might benefit. Like, yeah, just have to breed the right thing, and they probably will sell for a lot because I can imagine this is still gonna be very strong. Okay, now yeah, they're really buffing the beast stuff because okay, imp now change from the bonus damage from 25 to 45. So I feel like it's already a very strong card in the what do you call it, the rage build, the fury kind of form. But of course, it just hasn't really seen that much played last season at the very top, so that's why they changed this. But I feel like at the lower level, this imp is already quite strong, but now it's gonna be quite OP and maybe push the Rage Beast the back to the top, or at least in the Epic era. Okay, Trump doesn't really change that much. So it changed from 3 to 4 hit, but then the base decreases. So the power level is pretty much similar, except that of course now it scales better with feather and other things as well. So 4 hits can be quite good if you have a lot of bonus damage kind of buff, like of course Endless Anger, the Fury, not the Fury, the Rage, and the feather and stuff. So this would be pretty good. So good change, good change. Okay, then next is the interesting ones. All right, um, is the spears. So you can see I'm gonna do probably all 3 spears at the same time. So feather spear. all the speed has been reworked, and now how it goes is that okay, of course, Feather Spear still do two hits just because it kind of synergizes well with the multi-hit thing with Bird. But now it says grant one feather per spear card in your deck to all allied spear card owners. Okay, it's the same for the bamboo and scaly spear. Okay, so all of them are say grant one something per spear card in your deck to all allied spear card owners. So of course this entices people to, well, you really have to play three, um, at least two, I would say, spear cards, because otherwise it doesn't do too much. So let's say imagine you only have one feather spear card, because you actually a lot of the time people just play feather spear for the two feather and that's it, right? But now it only grants one feather if you only have one spear card, uh, but it grants the one feather to all allied owners. But of course, if you don't have any allied owners, then it's just grant one feather and that's it, right, to yourself, because it only applies to all spear card owners. Okay, so I can think of a scenario where you play three spear, then it is pretty good because then you basically gain three feathers and all your axes gain feathers, like three feathers. Okay, or alternatively, I'm thinking about leafy. That's why I'm a bit excited. Right, if you play like three bamboo spear, or even just two bamboo spear with another spear, that's fine too. And basically, you gain three leaves. All right, and for all three axes, so basically playing one bamboo spear already give you three leaves for all axes. Okay, so that already enables the leafy to be 150. So that's why I'm quite excited because now you have a very efficient way of getting leaves onto all axes. So yeah, that's why I think this might allow Leafy to see plays purely because of this. And maybe also AoE. Yeah, but of course for AoE, Winghorn might still be a better card than Feather Sphere because there are other ways of getting feathers anyway with the Tri-Feather and stuff. And for Scaly Spear, um, to be honest, Spike is not that useful other than, of course, Tri Spike. And so, unless I'm just thinking about you have Scary Spear and then you have like maybe triple Tri Spike kind of thing, then that could be pretty strong. So that's why I think I'm gonna build a team around that, I feel. Like with the spear, maybe not the feather spear, but maybe the bamboo and the scary spear with like leafy and tri spike kind of thing. So yeah, excited to see how that one will go. Okay, and then nearly missed this one, strawberry shortcake. Hasn't really seen played because 40 wasn't enough, so now it's 50. 50, I think it is pretty strong. It can be pretty strong, but it clog up your hand. That's one thing. But the base level, you spend two energy, deals 150 damage. So not damage, sorry. You heal for 150. Okay, because you do get two strawberries with the 50 also. Uh, but do remember that you can buff the card, right, with a charm, which can increase the heal by another, what is it, 13 or something? Then that's like 63 heal, and then you get another 120. So that's like 180-ish or more for two energy, and that could be quite significant. But still, against all the strong attack cards, this might not be enough. So that's my fear, just because two energy is still a very big commitment to a turn. I wish they just changed to one energy and then like half of all these, then maybe it could be better. But might be that way too strong, just because then the charm will still increase the same amount by the heal. But anyway, yeah, don't really see this, strawberry shortcake being played. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, then next we have Catfish. Again, it's basically a similar thing, right? AoE turn from 20 to 25. And for Catfish, again, it's just gaining one bubble. So, but the good part is that it is mouth. So it's basically, I think it's the only AoE for mouth. So maybe this could see play in, just because like this slot is not really that, you know, used for AoE, like for damage in general. Okay, so then we have post fight. Again, haven't really seen that much play. It does still like 90, and it still does 90, I think. Yes, it still does 90, but then instead of losing 20, you lose 15. Not that big of a deal. Then last one. Okay, the last one. So now what it says is that if this is the only attack card in your hand, deals 10 bonus damage per non-attack card in your hand. So instead of dealing 25, you now deal 10 per non-attack card. So this is a bit tricky to use. You can see what I mean, right? Is usually attack card you want to go in like aggro. But then of course this is the kind where it says okay only this if this is the only attack card meaning you have maybe another shield cards, other cards that you retain in your hand, then it and it buffed as well. So now it buffs to 70. So okay now I'm liking it just because I'm imagining let's say you have like five non-attack card in your hand and that would do 120 already. Hmm. So I'm thinking about things like um, but of course, yeah, like I was thinking about poison, but of course, poison you usually want like Tiny Dino, Gila kind of thing as the tail. But maybe other, maybe non-poison, but other teams that runs a lot of shield card, then it's kind of like a replacement to Tiny Dino, but then you don't have to retain it. But then, but that's actually no, that's actually a good point because. Hmm, now I think about it, right? You can have a lot of strawberries or a lot of like the wooden shield and those things. Or even, okay, feather. Okay, I was thinking about feather dagger, but feather dagger is an attack card, so that's why it doesn't work. So that's why they specify as non-attack card. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. You just have a full hand of like wooden shield kind of thing, right? Then I'm thinking about having 9 cards. If you have 9 cards, then you do yeah, 160 damage, right? Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about like that kind of like finisher for that kind of team. So yeah, maybe this would work. Yeah, quite like this change actually. So, but you, of course you have to make the whole team around this, which is interesting. And of course you can't really run like multiple copies of this. Also, you can, but then like yeah, you don't get the bonus if you have if you have play multiple copy of the last one in the same turn. So that's why it kind of limits how good this card is compared to things like Topaz. Okay, then we have Cloud now changed to having Retain, which is good. Then target any ally. If there are less than 5 feathers on the target, then grant 2 feather. Okay, so basically just again similar thing. It's just that now if you have more than 5 feathers, then instead of granting feathers, it adds 1 feather dagger to your hand. So basically it kind of limits the yeah. Let me scroll back up here. Limits the feather descent. I feel because with cloud you can make feather descent pretty easy, especially with retain, right, to get the feather daggers. But now if you have more than 5 feathers, then it doesn't grant feathers anymore. So it only gives you 1 feather dagger, and 1 feather dagger really is not that great, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm not liking this one to be honest, because 1 feather dagger, well, it does 5, but usually it does like 20. So 0 cost to 20 is not that great, unfortunately. I mean, I'm thinking about even like the square teeth is 0 cost deals what 25 at the base level. Usually it deals like 60 or more. So yeah, not liking it, but it does have retain, so it can have some synergy. Okay, then Thorny Caterpillar. But okay, I'm thinking about okay, but at least for Cloud, you can put the charm that adds feather, so maybe that could still work. Yeah, I'm not too sure still. But okay, because it is the only 0 cost card, I think you can put the charm on with the yeah, with the gaining feather kind of charm, so maybe this will work. Okay, I keep getting distracted. But okay, so Thorny Caterpillar. So now, oh, increase the base. Yeah, I mean, I've seen this play at like lower level, but at high level, I haven't really seen this much. So that's why, okay, base, increase to 120, which is good. And also the scaling. Okay. So yeah, this I think this makes a lot more sense because three goos for 30 doesn't really make much sense, whereas 10 per goo makes a lot more sense, I feel. That's because then every time you add a goo, then you know it increases. So imagine you have 10 goos, that's 220, which is okay, but it's a two cost card, so it's still yeah, I think you have to really play a lot more um, goose to make it work. But usually, if you have that much like that many goo cards in your opponents, you probably is doing pretty well. So yeah, it's a good change, but I don't think it pushes goo deck to that level. Unfortunately, that's how I feel. And lastly is potato leaf, and oh my god, so I thought this card was broken, but apparently it's not. Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't really seem that much play even. So now they just change it to 70 as opposed to 65. Small change, but uh, yeah, it is something. But I don't think, again, it's an archetype kind of problem. But I feel like this card is very strong. It's just that hard to find an archetype that works for potato leaf. And okay, this is all the changes. So hopefully now you're busy, thinking about what archetype you want to play and just theory crafting and everything with all these changes. Do note that it is not the final, so don't go ahead and breed the stuff already just because there will be further changes before the start of season 4. But still, something to look forward to, and maybe you can buy some cheap Axies. Definitely like short for Axies that you think might work. Maybe you thought yeah, if you like those cool stuff, then you might want to shop for some cheap Thorny Caterpillar deck before it gets OP, right? So that's in a way how you can um, play the market with this kind of information. Do note that they can still change, so that's why don't say, oh, certain, maybe Imp is very strong now, but they could tone it back down. So who knows? Of course, none of this is financial advice. Yeah, so enjoy theory crafting, and I'll see you in the next video.